So for those of you that don't know, this is kind of what an Artifactory instance looks like. You have a bunch of repositories, and then in those repositories, you have a bunch of artifacts. And as you can tell here, these repositories can be, they can have many different types, and the types basically determines the protocol and the type of tool that you would use to interact with that repository. And then within the JFrog platform, you also have Xray. And in Xray, you can sort of drill into the security status of each repository. And this is probably going to be very familiar stuff to 90% of DevOps people that work in any sort of sizable company. But here's sort of the magic thing with Coder. With Coder, we can finally shift all the way left with this kind of artifact management. So I'm going to come here to this deployment that we set up just for this demo. I'm going to go to this really suspicious looking old template. I'm going to create a workspace here. And, I'm going to wait. Terraform's going to do its thing. It's Terraform provider. You can the developer can see what all the Terraform is doing and has some approximation of how long it's going to take. Wait for the agent to connect. But boom, you can see as soon as this workspace is created, Coder is able to cross-reference the Docker image that was used to create the workspace with the image in Artifactory. So with that same Docker image in Artifactory. And then it's able to pull the results from JFrog Xray. And so, JFrog Xray is seeing these 6 critical, 35 high. As a developer, I can come in here and hit review and then sort of figure out what's going on. And if I had enough money, I could even, figure out the contextual analysis and really dig in deep into what these CVEs actually mean for me. But, as I was saying, developers are lazy. Developers also care about aesthetics, so maybe they wouldn't want this to show up all the time. But, this is really more so that developers maybe make a complaint to the platform team that, hey, there are some vulnerabilities here that maybe we don't understand. But the developer probably isn't going to have that much recourse themselves. I go in here and I create this template, this very, very froggy template. I'll get a different experience as a developer. I'll just click around to keep the screen, a little bit fresh, so you're not looking at the same thing. So as you can see here, this workspace is authenticating me to JFrog using the same email that I have with Coder. It's installing the JFrog VS Code extension, and it's configuring these various package managers to use Artifactory. So yeah, now if I open up Code Server, I am in a Coder workspace that is all the way frogged up, and all the dependencies are getting pulled from Artifactory. So for example, if I go in here and, I install Express, I'm actually gonna have to remember it's log equals trace, but this might not work. But if I install anything, that doesn't work, whatever, I forgot the flag. But the point is that anything that I install now via NPM using the very default methods is going to not pull from my Artifactory. And similarly, if I was doing a pip, it's going to pull from Artifactory. And so what Coder is really doing here is it's making security the easy thing for the developer. The developer doesn't really have to think about it. All the tools in the workspace are going to perform and behave like they normally do. They're just going to pull from this sanctioned source, this same source that you're using with your CI. So the developer is going to have less surprises when they push something up and they realize that, after my 2-hour-long flaky CI, I now discovered that my Horus package, I guess, is insecure. Something else that we did here in this template is we automatically installed the JFrog VS Code extension, which gives you very nice sort of in IDE Xray scanning. And so yeah, you can see here that this Express has got a lot of severity, a lot of vulnerabilities. And now as a developer, I know that. And I know like, hey, even though I don't care about security, my CI is not going to let me bring this in. And, right now when the code's still early, I can fix that. So yeah. Oh, and one other thing I'll show you is the way this actually is implemented in Coder. So a lot of this is actually just templates. It's a very customized experience that you can give your developer, but it's actually not something that like Coder is mandated or has any kind of opinion about. Here you can see the raw Terraform code that makes up this template. So you can see here we're using the Artifactory Terraform provider to create a scope token for the workspace. And the cool thing about Coder that I don't think you really could have done in a pre-Coder world is you can actually make these security credentials for developers that are scoped to the life cycle of the workspace. So Terraform creates them using some sort of master key when you create the workspace, and then Terraform deletes them when the workspace is deleted. And so you don't have as many worries about like exfiltration and key rotation. It's all kind of, we're kind of living like the OAuth dream or whatever it is people say these days. And here you can see in my Coder agent startup script, the actual code that's installing the VS Code extension, that's configuring NPM, that's cloning different repositories. All this stuff is completely editable. And, if you're using one of those other various package managers, you can sort of imagine making minor changes to this template to get it to work with whatever package manager organization is using. And this is just kind of, boilerplate stuff for making a Docker container. So yeah, that's nice. That.
Cool. Well, thank you, Amar. I think that's a great example of kind of some of the concepts that Kyle was talking about brought to life specifically to JFrog. We do have one question that was submitted. Our audience loves technical questions, so I'm going to read this in its entirety. And I think you covered this lightly, but it may be worth just double clicking on it. So the question is there an auth integration to JFrog similarly to how we authenticate into something like a Git repository so as to get a token, et cetera, into the environment? We use Docker, and it would be nice for people to be able to pull from Artifactory without having to manually log in.
Yeah, that's certainly a thing. And that's something that we're really excited about with Coder and Terraform-based workspaces is the ability to create these tokens, basically just solving secret management in a way that's transparent to the developer. So our dream is that a developer just creates a workspace and anything that they could possibly want, Git, Artifactory, their CI credentials, just everything's already in there and they only have to think about it. And so in this case, if you look at this base template, I believe this is kind of what you're asking about is maybe, these sort of concepts here. So as a platform engineer, I have this admin level access token to Artifactory, and my token has the ability to create these subordinate tokens for individual developers. And so obviously as a platform engineer, I need to have that. I give that to my template in Coder. And then when my developers create a workspace, they're getting this Artifactory scope token for themselves automatically made. So the developer doesn't even really have to know Artifactory is a thing. And most developers probably don't, want to log into Artifactory. They kind of just want to stay in their IDE as much as possible, maybe a little bit of GitHub on the side. And so yeah, this integration that I showed is completely automated from the perspective of the end developer.